Thanks so much for joining me on the Mark Divine Show. Super stoked to have you here.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for asking me.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. So you're down in Austin, Texas. Is it getting cold down there right now this time of year?
Well, it's 73 outside, and I have on my Uggs, and I did have on a vest. I took it off
73.
for the podcast.
I thought it'd be starting to get cold. I guess not. Wow.
Well, I guess it's all relative. We did have a couple of mornings that were in the 40s and 50s, so we all got excited that, it's time to hang up Christmas decorations and stuff like that.
I know. So. It's coming. It's coming quick.
That's right.
So I'm excited to talk to, I don't get to talk to too many female entrepreneurs and business leaders, so I'm stoked to kind of get your perspective on that. Before I dig into that and kind of your, your experiences in running a business that's involved in mental health, give us a sense for where you came from. Like what was the origin story of Marsha Stone? Like where are you from? What were your influences, good, bad, and ugly, that helped shape who you are?
Yeah. It's interesting, to sort of be in this podcast world where we get to ask each other these, sort of deep and searching questions, but it's fun, to kind of look back and put the breadcrumbs together like Hansel and Gretel. But I was born and raised in South Georgia, and, my family was sort of small town lawyers and tobacco farmers and stuff like that. And, I had a lot of family around me growing up, so I had a lot of support in that way. My parents divorced when I was really young. And, I think if I'm looking back and trying to kind of pinpoint, when did the heartbreak occur that needed, anesthesia in the future in terms of alcohol and drugs, I think it was a lot about that, and abandonment and not being quite sure where you fit into this world and all those, big feelings for little kids, right? I went to college in Virginia and married my sort of college sweetheart, also my best drinking buddy. And we had 3 kids by the time I was 24. Wow. And he hit the eject button and went home to his mom. And, for me, my career really started when I realized sort of really quickly I was going to have to be able to support myself and my children. And I remembered at that time I had 2 years of college, and I remembered that I had won a debate competition in high school and decided that maybe I could be a lawyer. And, people say, did you go to law school because, you had this aching desire to, practice environmental law and, save the whales? No. I mean, I hate to say this, but I was trying to get to
you
a place.
You were a good debater. Hey, that makes sense. Yeah.
That's true. And I wanted to have some security, right? That's what I was always sort of searching for. And I did that. And I actually got a scholarship to go to law school and went through that experience with 3 little kids. And that's when I really started to have an unhealthy relationship with alcohol. I chalked it up to stress. I chalked it up to, if you had my life, you would ... But I didn't really understand anything about alcoholism or addiction. I didn't know about genetic components. In the South, you don't air your dirty laundry. So I had no idea that in my family tree for hundreds of years, there was mental illness and addiction, alcoholism, intergenerational trauma. And, once I finished with law school, I thought that I was going to, get my drinking under control and sort of do the right thing for America. And that was my intention. And I really tried, but I couldn't pull it off. And, I didn't understand. And it still is, sort of one of those esoteric questions even today. If I make up my mind to do anything, I'm usually able to have the work ethic to do it, except when it comes to my relationship with alcohol and drugs. And making that decision every morning, I'm not going to drink this afternoon at all. And then doing that almost against my will. And so all those things started to happen, and it was just question mark after question mark for me. And
Marsha, can I pause you there?
Yeah.
So for the listener who doesn't maybe is curious, like,
yeah,
I wonder if
what
I'm
am
like
I talking
that.
about?
Yeah. Or they're like, I'm totally not like that. Or I'm really curious, what was that like, And I'll have to share, and I've been very open on this podcast, but I came from probably 10 generations of alcoholics on both sides of my mom and dad's family, and pretty traumatic childhood myself, because my dad was an alcoholic rager. Love him to death. He's an amazing guy, and actually really appreciate all the lessons and all the hardship, right? But it took me a while to get there. Anyway,
Same.
Yeah. What did that look like for you?
It was scary.
In terms of, what was the day like for you? Like, how did you? What was it like?
So, when I finished with law school, I became the first female assistant district attorney in the Southern Judicial District of Georgia. This was 1999. And big job for a little girl, right? I'm 29 years old. I've got 3 kids. My husband kind of came back and left and came back and left. And we did that for a long time. But there was a lot of pressure on me. I was confused and scared, because it literally is. It's like Groundhog Day. I drink too much. I pass out, whatever. I wake up the next morning. I have a hangover. I'm trying to get my coffee down, trying to go to work, trying to take the kids to school, and promising myself, okay, that's done. Tonight we're playing Monopoly. I'm going to make spaghetti. It's going to be a normal night. And then somehow about 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it felt like I changed my mind. And it started, I would start to have these thoughts like, it wasn't that bad. Like, you only drank 2 bottles of wine. Like, plenty of people drink 2 bottles of wine. And it's just constant negotiation, right? And I had no idea that there's a brain science involved here, and that I was not actually changing my mind. It's almost as my neurotransmitters were changing my mind for me, and I just wasn't educated about that. But, one of the things that I'm really grateful for, and this sounds so weird, I was not one of those people that stayed home and, drank and was quiet about it. I was driving, I was doing drugs. It was just, it was always like.
You wore it on your sleeve.
I did. And there was like this big dust ball around me wherever I went. It's like a Tasmanian devil or something. And so I ended up having a really bad car accident. This is a small town. There's nothing going on. They put my picture in the paper. My family's devastated and shamed. And everybody's kind of pointing to me like, she's got a problem. Now, knowing what I know now, I was like the recipient and the holder of hundreds of years of problems.
You were part of a system of problem. Big problem, capital P.
And I was like, I was really screaming like, this is effed up. But I didn't have those words, right? So I was just acting crazy and out of control. Long story short, I went to treatment the first time, 2002. I basically stayed sober, and I was practicing law that whole time. I moved to North Carolina. I had license there and in Georgia. And by that time, I had my own practice. Things were going well. I get remarried. We have 5 kids, blended family, beautiful white picket fence. Everybody's driving nice cars and, the latest Air Jordans to go to school, all that stuff, right? That is like a good life in America.
Yeah.
And one day, out of the blue, I relapsed. And, it became sort of the beginning of the end of all that. Within a year, I lost my license. I lost my house. I lost my car. CPS took custody of my children. My mom kept my kids for a year. It was tragic. And it was like, it's what I did though. Like, I burned it all the way down. I wasn't just going to, have a bonfire in the backyard. It was going to be like a 5-alarm fire. And after that happened, I went to long-term gender-specific treatment. And because my license was suspended, when I moved to Texas, my husband's from Texas, I started working in the treatment business, thinking I was just going to do that until I got my law license back, reactivated. And, Mark, I just fell in love with the work. I fell in love with this idea of understanding how, like, all the darkest points of my life and all the trauma and all the pain and all the tears and all the lies and all the sweeping things under the rug, now all of that was all of a sudden useful to me to help other people. Right. And so, when I think about, like, the similarities in my sort of career choices, it's always been about trying to help other people. I hate a bully. I love an underdog. I love, comeback stories. And what I found out in recovery that I never knew before is I'm an entrepreneur. It's just like, from the time I wake up to the time I go to bed, my assistant came in today and she was like teasing me for being a night owl because I was texting her at like midnight last night with an idea I have for, like a new sober living concept. And through all of that process, I just got to the point that I was just so grateful and so excited that I kind of knew, like, this is my purpose. This is why I'm here. And because of all that, I've had several different businesses and found a real, sort of acumen for business that I never knew I had, and have been really successful in that way. And I'm proud of that. But what I'm more proud of is all that loudness in my family. Literally, my kids are all in recovery now. They've been to treatment. My dad got sober at 74.
Wow.
And it's just really cool because I can share these experiences with other people, not only from, like a professional perspective, but a personal perspective as well. And, that saying, like, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day. I feel like I should have that tattooed on my chest or something because it's like, it's my life, recovery, the behavioral health business, all of these things are just, sort of, I guess, who I am, who I always needed to be, but I just had to walk through a lot of the mud and the mire to get there and get, over to the other side so I can talk about gratitude and,
well, it's interesting.
Success.
The trauma that leads to, whether it's generational or situational trauma. Still trauma that leads to, addictions and codependency and all that. People can function in the outer world at a pretty high level without ever addressing any of that, right?
For sure.
We see it all over the place. There's like narcissists rule the world.
Right.
So...
literally running our country.
Yeah, they're running our country, and a lot of them go to the leadership trainings, and they believe in the great man theory or the transformational leader theory, and they're like, look at me. And this has been a big push for me for the last 10 years. My latest book was called Staring Down the Wolf, and it's about leaders really taking a look at their shadow, right, and saying, you know what, you're the limiting factor in your team because you're not willing. You think you have to be perfect, or you think you are perfect, and you're wearing all these masks because you haven't dealt with your own trauma. And some people are offended by that when I say, well, you have trauma, period, right? Because if you were born human, you have trauma. And if you weren't born human, then I've got trauma because I'm just joking.
Yeah. No.
You know what I'm saying? So where I'm going with this is the skills to be an entrepreneur and a leader, you're going to be profoundly more effective because of the trauma and having dealt with it. Or
Absolutely.
Having the awareness of the trauma and having dealt with it, right? Doing the really deep emotional work, staring down that wolf of fear. So I applaud you. And it's not easy. It's scary work, right? It's scary.
Really
That's why a lot
scary.
of people don't want to do it.
Really scary. I will say I did therapy, of course, when I was going to treatment, but I did a lot of therapy, when I left treatment. And then I kind of got into, I'm going to say workaholism, but I was really work focused for about 6 years. And one day I woke up and all of a sudden it was just some memories and just, I was observing my relationships with certain personality styles, always ending badly. And I actually went back and did a week of, a personal experiential sort of one-on-one with a therapist in Tennessee, actually. And that to me, it's almost your brain protects itself from pain that it's not ready to handle. And so after I'd been, sort of eating and sleeping and exercising and praying for 6 or 7 years, it was almost something inside me said, okay, we're ready to deal with this now. And I'm just really grateful that I didn't hide from it. I didn't drink over it. I didn't, I had all of the experiences in education that pointed me toward do the work. And that's what you're saying. Because I think what happens is when people are scared to do the work or don't know that they need to do the work or whatever reason, don't want to take the time, whatever the excuse is, it doesn't matter because if you don't address it, you're going to bleed all over everybody around you one way or another. Right. And, over the years, I've sent most of my executive directors to do some personal work like that. There's been so many times that friends and family, have called me up, what do you think? I think you're in the second layer of the onion now. So you're going to have to sit down for long enough to, look at it, get it out, talk about it, whatever you need to do. Because I've seen so many people, blow up their marriage, blow up their business because they're just afraid to look at sort of the undercoating of their actions.
And I love what you said. You've got to stop, right?
Yeah.
People who haven't addressed the underlying issues, let's just call them that, they're in constant motion, right?
Yep.
They're constantly trying
Which
to
is another
create,
anesthetic,
which
right?
is an aesthetic, right? They're in constant motion trying to distract themselves and avoid, having to just stop long enough for that situation to arise where they can then stare at it and look at it and be like, oh, interesting. That pattern is, keeps coming up and up and up and up. So instead of running from it, now you can confront it and objectify it and then deal with it, whether it's through a therapeutic process or some people are effective at dealing with it just through that awareness of it.
True.
But it's difficult. Yeah. I always recommend professional help. I'm curious. I want to get into kind of like the business of healthcare and recovery, and your challenges as a female leader and CEO. But before I just to bridge it, what works for you, for your companies? Like what, if someone's listening and goes, yeah, Mark, you're right, Sharon, you're right. I do drink too much, or I do avoid, constantly chasing something to avoid something else. Well, what tools have you found to be most effective in your program?
I think one of the reasons that our programs are effective, not only clinically effective, the clients are having a good experience, and that's one part of it. But the other part of it for me is, what does my retention look like? What does, how many people are coming in and out of this door? How many people are quitting? How many HR complaints are we getting? What's going on? And it's interesting. We opened up a new mental health program in May of this year. And we had like a soft opening and a week of training. And I went out and I gave like about an hour-long talk to all the new employees. And I said something along the lines of, if you're living in Austin, Texas, and you're applying to work at one of, Marsha Stone's programs, you have probably heard some things before you came here. And you probably have heard that I am demanding, that I demand excellence, that I'm going to push you, that I'm going to ask more of you than you think you can do. And all of that is true. And everybody, all the guys and girls were like, because they thought that I was going to be like, that's not true. It's all love and butterflies. And, I said, it's true. And here's why it's true, right? If I'm called into this work, if I'm literally called to work in behavioral health, to me, that means I am in the business of saving lives every single day. We don't call it emergency room. We don't call it a hospital. We call it so-and-so recovery center, so-and-so wellness center. But, these clients are in the fight of their life. And I know that because I was there. And if I'm going to enter into this business of helping people survive and fight for their life, then I'm going to need to show up with 100% every day.
Right.
Oh, you can't show up with 100% every day. Yes, you can. Yes, you absolutely can. And I told the new employees, I said, and also you guys are capable of much more than you realize. And we've got a way, and we've got a system, and we've got a training program. And when you come out of this, a year or two down the road, whether you stay with our organizations or you don't, you will have basically, a Harvard PhD education in how to function in behavioral health and to do it well. And I don't shy away from that. I'm proud of that. And, I feel like sometimes when we're teachers or, drug counselors or, whatever, some of these like highly demanding jobs that don't necessarily have the monetary, remuneration that they should, right? Then to me, what that says is I have to fill in that space for people so that they will be attracted to wanting to do this work with us, and that they will sign up and be on board with like the excellence that we demand. And what I've heard from people is, in terms of communication with treatment centers, behavioral health programs, there's, the name of my company, and then there's everybody else. And that's the biggest compliment to me, because what that says is that the people that are working with me, first of all, I'm not asking them to do anything that I don't do and haven't done and wouldn't do. And I see that the lights come on and that they're having an experience with feeling good about themselves and realizing that they have talents and abilities and education, and they're proud of themselves. And I feel like that there's, a real synergy between what's going on with employees and what's going on with clients, because we're providing a space for growth and transformation in both those areas.
That's really cool. Now, I thought you were going to give me some tool, but it makes, I 100% agree with you. It's the caring presence. Yeah, the culture and the caring presence of the healers that provides the possibility for transformation and the modeling, right? And the space. And the tools are the tools, right? Those are going to be similar across different disciplines, but it's the people that make the difference.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. I never want, our clients or their families to feel like that they kind of drop their daughter or their son or their wife or husband off at our front door, and we say, or give any kind of impression that we're like, don't call us, we'll call you, see you in 30 days. That doesn't work. I don't think it's ever worked. And so what we're doing is a lot of collaboration. We consider the family to be part of the treatment team,
Love it.
I was doing a panel last week, and they said, what's the future? What are you doing now versus what you were doing before? And I said, the future, I think, is collaboration, more collaboration, and not just they have addiction, they have mental health, they have co-occurring disorders. It's all the same, right? And the more people that we can get interested in that process and in that transformation and in that longevity and holding that recovery in place, the better for everyone, for families, for individuals, for employers, for the world. And I'm excited about that happening, because I feel like, sort of recovery is almost transitioning into a word that sounds like wellness and talking holistic. And to me, that resonates with me, because it's not, I didn't just have a problem drinking too much, right? I mean, there was like a whole litany of problems and things that had gone awry and needed healing.
But the point was, you weren't a bad or broken human being who needed to be, named something. Right. That's why I've always had an issue even with the isms, right? There's alcohol in my family, but don't call me anything near that, right? I don't, no. So treating something as part of a system that has negative energy in it and whatnot, and then you can move toward the positives. And the positive side is health and wholeness. Right. So when you approach things from the health and wholeness and integrative perspective, and there's things we can do behaviorally, there's things we can do cognitively, spiritually, bringing the family in. So treat it as a whole system, like you said, and then begin to see that some of those negative things really belong to somebody else, and you can detach from those, and all of a sudden it frees that energy up. And then there's some that you own because you took it on as a child, and it's within your psyche or your energy body. So we need to.
But this whole scapegoat, right? This whole scapegoat thing in the family. That's bull.
It happened.
That
it's
was
not
never
who you
true.
are. Right.
Exactly.
It's not who you are. It just happened. Yeah. I totally love that approach.
And I'm not ashamed of it anymore. And that's the gift, right? I don't care if I'm talking to Mark Devine. It wouldn't matter to me if I was being interviewed by, President Biden. This is the truth. And honestly, there's a
short
movie.
Interview.
Well, oh my gosh, sorry, that wasn't on purpose. I was doing a talk sometime on the steps of the Capitol in Texas, and I said something about being an alcoholic, and somehow that ended up on YouTube. I don't know how these things work, but I've had so many people say to me, how could you get on the steps of the Capitol and say that you're an alcoholic? And I was like, I am. It's that's like me saying I have green skin and purple eyes. No, you don't. So, I don't know, but to sort of own it and make it a part of my, the story and how that goes forward. It doesn't make sense without reflection and honesty about the past. And so that's, when I'm talking to employees, when I'm setting up culture, the things that we always talk about are honesty, humility, courage, sisterly love, and the spirit of collaboration. A win for an employee is a win for me. A win for me is a win for them. And I think, one of the things that Well, I'll say this, I had another business, the first business I started in behavioral health, and I went through sort of a transaction and brought in some investors and sold part of it, in 2020. It was kind of a nightmare for me because I really realized there was more emotion to it than I was aware of. I knew that there was some, but I had a 2-year contract to work there, and it's like watching someone else not do it quite right with your child every single day. It's just, it was hard, but worked out the contract, did the non-compete, and just this year started a new program, a set of programs, a new platform. And a lot of the people that had worked with me before called up and said, "Hey, what are you doing? We want to come over there." Right.
Oh, cool.
And Mark, I mean, I'm telling you, like, until the day I die, I think that might be one of the biggest compliments I've ever received. Because even if it was hard, even if I was demanding, even if all these things, they wanted to be a part of it because it's based in spiritual principles and greatness. And that's like,
well,
that makes me proud.
I come from the Navy SEALs, and we're like counterculture because we appreciate hard. Like, we know that hard work works and easy makes you weak. Right. And so you don't get into the SEALs.
Not everybody gets a trophy.
Nobody ever gets a trophy, and very few people get the Trident. And even when we get the Trident, the Navy SEAL insignia, we have to earn it every day. And that's one of our ethos: earn your Trident every day. So this is something that we teach with our clients, both corporate and individual as well. And there's a little bit of adjustment, just like, I want to hear your take on this with the culture. Like, someone new comes along and not everyone is ready for that. And some people opt out. But, after a year or so, all of a sudden they are just absolutely thriving. And like you said, we use the term 20x. They found that they're capable of 20 times more than they thought they were. And they realize that the power comes from the team and not from themselves. Right. And suddenly the whole culture.
I should have been in the Navy. It's exactly what I believe.
You could have been the first female Navy SEAL. Yes.
I don't know about that. My husband went to the Citadel, so I'm kind of like, boys need boys' schools, but that's a whole nother story.
Tell us a little bit about how you, like, more specifically, how you build culture and then maintain it in your organization.
There's a few sort of tenets that are tried and true, and those are timeliness. We have a 5-minute early rule, and if anyone ever breaks that rule, it's me, because I'm in my car talking on another phone call and don't realize. But when I walk into a meeting, everyone's there, right? So there's just timeliness, and there's a respect to that, right? The other thing is accountability. Every Wednesday we have what I call big staffing, and that's when all the directors from the different departments of all the companies sit around, and that's where I get reports on what's going on. And that's where, everybody says, like, Marsha has this knack. If like 99 answers to the 100 questions, she's going to ask the one. And I don't know if that's true or false, but it doesn't matter, because what we're talking about here is accountability, right? And it doesn't matter if it's I believe in nepotism. I have my kids, their spouses, my friends that I got sober with. There's lots of relationships and connectivity within our team usually. And it doesn't matter what my outside relationship with you is like. When we're there to talk about the business of what's going on with the clients that you're responsible for, or the accounts that you're responsible for. And that's when the hard questions, come. And I think when people first start working on that environment, it's scary, right? But it's okay if it's a little scary. When I was in law school, if they asked us a question, we had to stand up and answer it. Do you know how scary it is to stand up? Like, there was like 10 women in my whole law school class. And plus, I'm the odd bird because I got 3 kids. One of them probably with me crying, couldn't go to school because has the runny nose, whatever. But you have to stand up, right? And answer the question and take accountability for what your answer is to the question, and how, you went about, examining that and understanding the fact pattern. And this was the, answer that you came out with. And if it's not the right answer, how did you get to the wrong conclusion? And I guess I'm just really trained in that sort of Socratic method of questioning. And I bring that into our team meetings. And by that, all of the directors bring that into their staff meetings. That's it just kind of goes along and along. And there's this closeness, and there's this, family feel, but there's also this deadly earnestness about what we're doing. Right. And I always tell people, if I'm ever interviewing someone and they start talking to me about work-life balance within the first 30 minutes, like, we're done. Listen, I said, we are running emergency rooms. I don't care what they call them. These are 24/7 emergencies. My phone has not been off since 2009, right? Yeah. And so if you want to talk about work-life balance, look down the road. There's a Chase Bank. Their hours are 9 to 5. I bet you can get a job there. I'll write you a letter of recommendation. And I'm kind of being silly and sarcastic right now, but I'm serious. I agree with you.
There is a place for people who need that, and bureaucrats need that, and certain type of people need that kind of like, I go to work and then I go home and I don't, nary the twain shall meet. Entrepreneurs are not like that. There is no work-life balance for entrepreneurs. Work is life. Life is work.
Exactly.
And family is all part and parcel of that.
Yeah.
They're along the road.
Yeah, you got to get them to come work for you so you'll see them, right?
Exactly. My family all works for me.
There you go. I always say people like, oh, nepotism's bad. Explain why. Tell me why. Yeah. Today, Haley, my vice president, said, I think we should put Bailey on the bank accounts because you keep missing like things you're supposed to sign. Bailey's my daughter-in-law. I said, put Bailey on the bank accounts. That's a great idea. You know what I mean?
That's great.
And so I think that there's just, for me, what I love about what we're doing is to have that family feel, to be, to laugh and have that, sort of, spirit of levity, but also that deadly earnestness about what we're doing and that accountability. It just kind of brings in, all the different facets of the sort of life that I crave. And the life that I crave is based on connectedness, but it's also based on like hitting home runs. Right. And I think that I think that if more people could be, how do I say this? If more people could be more sincere about the life that they crave and more willing to create that life, then I think we would have a lot more successful businesses and happy people.
Well, and people haven't been taught how to take the time to really envision a life that they could crave.
Yeah.
Because they're so distracted with social media and comparison analysis, right? So everyone's comparing themselves against everyone else, and none of that matters. I mean, the first step to destruction is to worry about what other people think about you.
It's true.
And everyone's out there worrying about what other people think and pointing fingers and comparing and judging. And I'm curious, how do you deal with, like, two-part question. Do you have like a selection process, like in the Navy SEALs? Like, it takes years to become a Navy SEAL. Right. How do you like make sure that the wrong people don't get in the front door? And two, are you finding challenges like with Gen Z people who are like, I don't know. There's just some issues that I've been hearing. They want
$100,000. They want a 6-figure salary.
They want
a
big salary, and they're not going to answer their email after 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock at night, and they're not going to work weekends, and they want all the perks and benefits.
I don't know. I think it's a big problem. I totally agree with you. I don't have much interaction with people like that because if you get into behavioral health, you usually start at sort of either, if you don't have your education yet, you're going to start as a tech, right? And that's like the lowest man on the totem pole with the most responsibility with absolutely no authority, right? And so that's a grind. And people that are, not really interested in working, they're going to weed themselves out pretty quickly, right? Or then you have the people that, became counselors and got their license and stuff like that. And honestly, I think what's happened is kind of like, your reputation precedes you. So we don't have a whole lot of people that are applying to work with us that don't know like how we kind of run things. Yeah. It does happen
law of attraction.
Sometimes.
It's kind of like this. Exactly. It's the law of attraction instead of recruiting.
It is. And if they're there and they're not like team-minded and collaborative, it just doesn't last long,
Right.
It just doesn't last long because it's sort of a red herring, I guess.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. So what as a female entrepreneur and CEO, what are some of the biggest challenges that you face that you think, like I wouldn't necessarily have had to face or I don't face?
Well, I don't know if you're familiar with that Taylor Swift song about, I think it's called If I Were the Man. And,
I don't think I've ever heard a Taylor Swift song, but you can sing it for me, Missy, if I recognize it.
I can't sing it, but I can tell you what it says. It says basically like, if I'm aggressive, I'm a bitch. If I'm, smart, or if I'm, way ahead of the game in some kind of a, business model or whatever, then, I'm too big for my britches, or,
Yeah.
also a bitch, maybe, I don't know. And so
Yeah,
I think one of the things that I don't know how to say this. I never really paid that much attention to being a woman, because I was just always kind of worried about, raising kids and putting food on the table. So, I knew that there weren't very women in my law school, but it didn't really start to sort of negatively impact my reputation until I got successful in behavioral health. And what happens is, I actually did a talk on this in Aspen earlier this year. In this industry, for whatever reason, there's this sort of underlying current that, you need to be a nonprofit, or you need to be a martyr, or you need to, stay small, to stay small, stay humble, all those things. And I kind of came out of the gate and said, I'm calling BS on this. There's plenty of people that are in this industry that don't care about patient outcome, that are making boatloads of money that you guys know nothing about. So why is it that the players that are actually developing like really effective programs, why are we being, shunned or talked about or called unethical because we have good outcomes and we have good financials? And I sort of, stepped in and said, these are not mutually exclusive. We can have excellent programs. We can have, every single one of my employees has all their health insurance, all their, everything's paid for by the company. We, agree to reimburse for, further education. All these things are good and all these things are happening. And we're also profitable. But sort of all the buzz was, what's she doing down there in Texas to make all this money, And then back in the 5 or 6 years ago, everybody was like, doing all these drug screens and, charging insurance thousands of dollars for drug screens and all this stuff. And I had just opened my 4th program, and I started hearing the rumor that this one guy was saying, oh, Marsha's got a drug lab. She's got a drug lab at the back of that 70 acres. And that's how, she's making all this money off urine tests and drug tests and blood tests and all this stuff. It was total crap. I ran into this guy at a conference, and I was like, hey, I heard that there's a lab on my big property down in Austin. Can you help me find it? Like, where is this lab? I don't know anything about this lab, And everybody's like, what did he say? And I was like, he got really interested in his shoestrings, right? I mean, he was like that. But I don't know. Yes, it's harder. Yes, it's harder to be taken seriously as a woman in this industry. I will own that. But at the same time, if you're true, if you're brave, if you're willing to speak out, if you have courage, and you're honest, you can step into that and you can make it different. Because now it's kind of like I've changed my whole sort of persona and reputation, I guess, has kind of evolved over the years to like, she's not a bullshitter. I mean, Marsha's a truth teller. She'll tell you like it is. And I own that, right? I'll own that. I will not own Marsha's unethical. I will not own Marsha's got a P lab. I will not own, Marsha's, running scams with insurance, because that's not true. I will own Marsha pushes her employees. Marsha demands, excellence. Marsha requires that people, work certain hours or whatever. And so I just kind of have gotten to the point. Also, I turned 50, and I think when you turn 50, you just don't care as much. So I'm just kind of like, like, you know what I mean? It's like, listen, all y'all are young enough to be my children. Like, have some respect.
That's funny. I love it. So if a young woman's listening to this and be like, I really want to be an entrepreneur. You were a JD and an attorney. I was an MBA and then a Navy SEAL, and then I became an entrepreneur. And I found a lot of benefit from being a Navy SEAL, and maybe not so much the MBA. And you found a lot of benefit from being an attorney and finding your voice and learning how to argue an argument. Would you say to the young woman, hey, just start whatever it is you want to start, or would you say go cut your teeth somewhere before you start a venture? Does it give you time to think about it? It'll give you some skills. You're going to get kicked down a few times, and
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think the biggest thing for me that because there were times in my life when before I became more comfortable in calling myself an entrepreneur and a successful business person. And there were plenty of times where I was like, God, why did I have to go to law school if I'm not even going to practice law? Like, that was a lot. You know what I mean? Like, that's a lot.
It's just training. It's training your mind a certain way. That's the way I look at it. Yeah,
it is. It's training your mind, and it gave me discipline, and it gave me the ability to, think analytically, and most of all, to go back to what you asked, it gave me confidence. And I think that sometimes when you're sort of like staring down the barrel of the shotgun, so to speak, the banker's calling you, or the, whatever, like, the licensure person's calling you, and you're going to stare down the barrel sometimes in business. And it's like, at the end of the day, you're the one that's on the hook. Right. And I think whatever training you had before, whatever life you had before, gives you sort of confidence and also gives you perspective. And so the product, whatever your product is that you're, creating or buying or selling or whatever you're doing, the product is important. But for me, if I'm honest, I think like the confidence and the sort of chutzpah and the know-how and the drive, those are the things that I think makes any business successful.
I agree.
Much less than the product. It's
not
more
the
so
technical skills or the product itself. It's the character of the leader and the team.
Exactly.
Totally agree.
So I
with
would
that.
say take a little time, get your knees skinned, get up, brush them off, go to bed sad, wake up happy, do it all again. There's lessons there.
Without the 2 bottles of wine a night.
Oh my God. I don't even know, like looking back now, how did I even function? I mean, I remember some days like taking a couple shots before I went and like tried a murder case. I mean, it's unbelievable. But I think that grit is grit. Right. And also, when you're 29, you don't need as much sleep as you do when you're 50. And
I am blown away when I look back at the things that I used to do in my 20s. I'm like, I don't have any idea like how I survived.
I don't have any energy anymore to do all that. It's like,
No,
wow.
you can't.
No,
amazing.
I can't. But yeah.
We got to wrap up pretty soon. But so you kind of got out of your other thing. That was BRC Healthcare. Now you're free. Tell us about your foundation program.
I started a new platform called Foundation Stone, Family of Programs. My last name is Stone, but I chose Foundation Stone because there's lines in our recovery literature that talk about helping others being the foundation stone of mission, life, journey, recovery. And that really resonated with me because that's the first thing I think about in the morning and the last thing I think about at night, right? And helping other people and creating ways and vessels and programs to help other people, that's the deal, right? That's the whole deal. So we started that, and I'm doing more mental health friendly and encompassing programs these days. Nice. I've got one in Austin, one in Pensacola.
Not addiction related?
Addiction as well, but also
mental health can be separate from that,
and to look at it as more holistic, right? I mean, because most people that come in, there's mental health components, there's addiction,
there's
alcoholism,
a huge issue in our country
genetics.
right now with mental health post-COVID. I mean, people are really suffering, so that's really necessary.
For sure. I mean, it was bad, right? It was bad before COVID and all that isolation and all that social media. I mean, it's a pandemic, and that's what we're really focusing on now. And I think we're going to do a program next in Nashville, which I'm excited about. And it's just fun to be back in it,
Are these all in person, like you have to be there in person type programs, or do you have anything virtual? Yes,
these 3 are residential programs. We are creating a virtual aftercare model, which I'm really excited about. That'll probably be launched next year. I'll call you and let you know.
Yeah, please.
And really the deal, Mark, is just like I'm just always striving to create new and better and more inclusive programs to help more people. And that's, when I boil it all the way down, that's what drives me. That's what my purpose is. That's what, sets my heart on fire. And ultimately, I just feel really, really, very, very grateful to be able to, sort of swim in that pond every day. And I don't know.
I've said.
It's good.
It's good. Life is good when you're doing what you love and what needs to be done.
It's not for everybody, right? But it's good for me.
It's good for you. And like everyone has a singular, this is my belief, everyone has a singular purpose that's unique to them. That only, like there's something that only Marsha Stone can do. and you found it and you're doing it in a big way.
Yeah.
And so it's not work. It's just pure joy.
Literally.
Yeah,
I mean,
have
I'm
your
at
ups
my
and
house
downs.
right now.
I
Of
know.
course. But I'm at my house right now. My French bulldog's pawing on the door. I'm going to go play with him next. And then I'm
Nice.
going to get on the phone with a client. And I'm grateful. Life is really good. And I'm grateful for every drink I ever drank, every other drug I ever did. I'm grateful that the Bar Association, kicked my butt to go to treatment, again and again and again.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm grateful for all those hard lessons. And that to come out on the other side and say to people like, I was just like you. Come on, we've got a solution here.
There's a
There's
way.
lots
There's
of
a way.
life for you to live in the future. And that's what I do.
I love that. And I love no regrets is a big theme of ours. Like you can't hang on. Yeah, we all have fuck ups and disasters in our lives. It's just part of being human. Let
That's
it go
life.
and forgive yourself and forgive whoever you think hurt you. Forgive the alcohol,
Yeah.
Just let it go and move
That's
on.
right.
Live life forward. No regrets.
It's
Well
true.
done. Well,
good.
such an honor to meet you, Marsha. I appreciate your time today and for doing the work. And it's a lot of people need your help. So I'm really stoked that you're doing the mental health.
Thank you.
FoundationStonePrograms.com.
Yeah.
Check it out. Do you have social media?
MarshaStone.com.
MarshaStone.com.
Yeah.
Check it out.
MarshaStone.com and all the links and icons and buttons are there. So my kids are like, Mom,
the
you
buttons
have
are
got
there.
to get on TikTok. And I'm like, I can't even set an alarm clock. What are you talking about?
I know what you're saying. I got to tell you a quick story.
Yeah.
So I have an 11-year-old granddaughter, and this is like 2 years ago. I got a call from someone on the East Coast, and simultaneously I got a in-mail LinkedIn from someone in the Pentagon, and the call on the East Coast came from Washington D.C. They said, "Mark Devine, this is Commander Devine." Yeah. So your granddaughter has hacked into your Instagram account and is doing an Instagram live. And I'm like,
That's amazing.
what? And
I love that.
I figured out how to log on because I don't even log on to my own accounts. I mean, I have a team that
Right.
does that stuff, right? Like you probably.
Yeah.
And there she is, and she's like,
Right.
hashtag grandpa's account, and
Oh my Lord.
I actually gained some followers, and I lost a few, I'm sure, but it was just the
That's
hilarious thing.
hilarious.
And so
I love
she's-
it that the Pentagon is like watching over your Instagram
I know,
account.
that
I'm
made me
like,
a little bit nervous.
You're a big deal now, okay? Like you just risen to the top of the big deal status.
So obviously, either I've done something really awful or they're kind of like what I'm doing. Let's hope it's the latter. Anyways, Marsha, thanks so much for your time, and
Thank you.
good luck
It's
with
been
everything.
really fun. Yeah, I look forward to staying in touch.
Likewise, take care.